War in Iran, Israel and America pounding that nation, but Tehran's fighting back. Is this a good opportunity for Donald Trump to sort out the Middle East, or has he simply made it worse?
This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you!
Boring. Boring. Boring.
You got it work. Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that. That's exactly what you're doing. You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
I call again for immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages, the hostages.
Welcome to another edition of Lembit Öpik Live here on Unprecedented TV, where we find the facts, kill the spin, and tell it like it is as best we can. Well, I owe you an apology. If you've been watching me on this channel or other channels, I didn't think that there would be a hot war between Israel and America on one side and Iran on the other. But I have been blindsided by the decision of the Israeli-American group unit duo in assaulting in a military way Iran. More than that, they've killed the supreme leader, essentially the head of state of the Iranian country, a country with 90 million people, a very well organized military, and essentially aspirations to be the regional superpower. As I broadcast this to you, the assault continues, but it goes both ways. Iran is fighting back and has pounded some other destinations as far afield as the United Arab Emirates, the UAE, which conventionally tends to stay out of this kind of conflict. Indeed, a hotel which has been damaged is very close to, or perhaps even in roughly the same complex as a place I've stayed in a number of times in Dubai myself. So where does this go? Has there got some kind of exit strategy in the theories, the strategies, the plans of Israel and America, or have they got no such plan? Is this some kind of one-hit wonder where they think they'll be able to carry on pummeling Iran until it gives in, until there's some kind of organic regime change? Or haven't they thought it through? I declare an interest. I know a lot of Iranians, and I find them generally to be quite gentle people. And not all of them were against the regime. As I speak, they're as concerned as I am about people they know living in Iran. They're living under the specter of a continuing onslaught by two very well-armed countries, Israel and America again. But it's also causing distraction, discomfort, and I actually think a degree of dissent in potential neutrals up till now, but also potential allies for Iran. So what's going to happen? No one better to discuss this with than Warren Thornton, who is a military man and an investigative journalist. Big picture here, Warren. As we speak, and this is a fast-developing situation, who's winning?
Well, at the moment, I'd say it's pretty even, but for every single day that the Iranian government survive, they begin to win. And the longer this goes on without Trump achieving and Netanyahu achieving what they set out to do, and let's be honest here, it was never about nuclear. It never has been, because, of course, they were talking about this, and, of course, they struck them for the second time while they were negotiating. And very simply, this is about overthrowing the Iranian government and putting in maybe somebody like Pahlavi or somebody else who will be more akin to what America and, of course, Israel want. And that has been, if they thought by killing the Ayatollah they were going to get that, well, they're sadly mistaken. It's had completely the opposite effect.
Let's look at the level of violence which is taking place. There really is a huge amount of onslaught, apparently in both directions. couple of observations I'd make, Warren. One is I'm amazed at how sophisticated air defense systems have become. Iran seems to have a fairly effective air defense system, and so has Israel. But some things are getting through. And I understand that this onslaught is probably continuing even as we speak.
It is.
How long do those air defense systems last? Do they get exhausted? Do they run out of Patriot missiles and whatever Iran's using?
Yeah, absolutely. Because what they've got to do is they've got to make America have got to get this done at the rate that they are firing missiles. Now, if they'd have spared them a little bit more, they might be able to last a bit longer. But at the rate that they are going, they've got about 2 weeks to 3 weeks to get this done. And by then, their supplies are going to be in very short supply. They're already receiving Patriot missile system missiles from Ukraine that were earmarked for Ukraine are going to America and to Israel. And that's where we have a major problem, because they're just going to keep hitting. Of course, they're going to keep firing these, and Iran can outlast them in terms of the strikes that they've got to make. And of course, they've got Russia and China supplying them with much better weaponry than they had the first time round. So really, America need to get this done in 2 or 3 weeks, because the longer it goes on, the worse it's going to get, and the worse the odds get for Israel and America.
Okay, so on this first point, then, what you're saying is that in a war of attrition, in other words, in a war where you're using up your resources, the West is going to run out before Iran?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the moment, when you're talking about they're already getting Patriot missiles from Ukraine, you have to remember that everybody was going down on the amount of missiles. The 12-day war, it wasn't Iran that came begging for a ceasefire. It was actually Trump. And he's already put feelers out for a ceasefire, saying Iran wants to talk. And what he did was use a back channel through Italy to say, which was pretty brazen, you know, we've killed the Ayatollah. Would you like to talk peace now? The Iranians are not interested at all. They told them exactly where to go, and they used an Italian back channel to do it. And Iran dismissed it out of hand. Iran have said they will decide when the war finishes, and nobody else will tell them what to do. And they, to be fair to Iran, they did warn Israel and Trump that if they started this war, Iran would carry on for as long as it took to finish it. And it seems at the moment as though they are 100% committed to doing that. And the problem that they have is America, Trump and Israel came out. In fact, the Israelis hacked into the Iranian state broadcasting system and asked people to come out on the streets and take over the country and start riots and everything else. It hasn't materialized. It's worked the other way. And of course, when that went wrong, then they bombed the TV station.
So was it Netanyahu or somebody else who made the appeal?
It was Netanyahu on the appeal. The Israelis managed to hack into the Iranian state TV. And of course, he broadcast a message asking for people to go onto the streets. But of course, the original violence, should we say, from the people who were paid to go in there in the first place, there's not enough of them left. Iran and Russia have been very good at mopping up all these people who were supposedly going to set the country free, but were trying to set it alight. And then, of course, the Americans, what with the strikes and everything else, they were thinking, or they were gambling, that Iran must fall because of the trouble inside and the missiles hitting. And, of course, special forces then coming in to do damage. But the people in the streets have gone out in the streets for the government, and not just in a few hundred. They've gone out in hundreds of thousands.
I don't understand why Benjamin Netanyahu would think that he'd be a popular figure in Iran, even if you didn't like the Iranian regime yourself. Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't really come from the same diaspora.
No, exactly that. And the trouble is they've now martyred the Ayatollah. Now, the Ayatollah didn't go anywhere. He just turned around and said, I'm not going anywhere. I'm happy to martyr myself for the cause. I'm an old man of 86. I've got health problems. If they kill me, they kill me. What they didn't expect, of course, was the fact that the family would be there on the Sunday. They could have hit him anytime, but they literally waited for his family to be there. And of course, his son-in-law, his daughter, and of course his granddaughter were there when they hit the compound. So of course that inflamed the Iranians even more, and of course they're all out in the streets now. And of course the new Ayatollah, here's the rub. It was never about anything to do with nuclear, because the Ayatollah actually put a religious, shall we say, block on Iran having a nuclear weapon. Now, the guy who's temporarily in charge until they put a new Ayatollah in place is for Iran having a nuclear weapon. So you would have to explain to me how they thought that would work.
So you're saying that the man who has just been killed in this military action,
yes,
was not keen on having a nuclear weapon. If that's what you're saying, Warren, that's the exact opposite of what the mainstream media has been saying on behalf of Western politicians. Yeah,
of course, and the Western media are let's face it, you can't trust the Western media. But the Ayatollah was most specific. In fact, he put 2 edicts out, 2 separate ones, about anybody caught developing a nuclear weapon would come in for summary judgment and punishment, which is about as high as you can possibly get. And now they've killed him. They've removed the only obstacle to Iran owning a nuclear weapon. And in fact, the person who's in charge at the moment is literally for nuclear weapons. So it goes to show that it was never about nuclear weapons. It was always about trying to overthrow the government. And that's what Netanyahu and Trump have tried to do. In Trump's address, he said it is time for the people of Iran to rise up. Netanyahu and obviously his advisors, who are very Israeli, have pushed Trump into a corner, given him terrible advice. And of course, he's gone ahead with it. He's done what the Israelis, or shall we say, his group of people who are all Israeli-backed that surround him, have given him terrible advice, saying this is going to work. And it is a terrible own goal, Lembit.
Well, the way that these demonstrations are portrayed are a lot of people coming out, showing great courage, standing up against the crumbling regime. Interestingly enough, you also hear, I think, almost a grudging admission that there are also pro-government demonstrators. It's hard to know what to believe, but I think many of our viewers might be surprised by you saying that the man on the screen there who's been killed was actually a resisting force for nuclear weapons for Iran.
Yeah, I mean, you can go and look it up for yourself. He's actually pronounced 2 edicts that at no stage should Iranians have weapons, and anybody caught trying to build one, of course, will face the full wrath of the law. And that would include, in Iran, of course, it being an Islamic state, the Islamic Republic, that, of course, includes summary execution as well.
Well, he's been portrayed in the posthumous reviews like that one in a really, really rather negative light. So that's an interesting point that you're making. Now, next question for you is, when you look at the way that the Israelis and the Americans are pounding Iran, what do you think their game plan is? Is it really to hope that millions and millions of Iranians will now overthrow the regime?
Yeah, absolutely. And what they're also hoping is just that they kill the existing leaders. Of course, they'll be able to bribe or threaten the new leaders into being of a softer stance and doing whatever they will do. And every single one who was in the government or in the army, and they have killed some leaders, they've obviously, Trump has come out and expounded the figure of 48, but they've actually killed about 8 or 9, including the Ayatollah, of these important figures. But they'd already put people in place to take over from them and named a successor. So this is never going to work. The people are not rising up. They're not able to bribe or coerce these people into overthrowing the government. And of course, the Western media is coming out with all sorts of nonsense. The problem that we have, Lembit, is these people do not have the first idea or first clue about the country they are dealing with. They think what works elsewhere works in Iran, and it quite simply doesn't.
Stay with us. That's Warren Thornton. We'll come back to him to talk about the British response and what I think is the utter confusion in the head of Prime Minister Keir Starmer. I haven't got a clue where he actually stands on it, but maybe Warren can help us with that. In the meantime, don't forget, we've got lots of other great shows, including Tim Scott with Tim Scott on Cancel. He digs into the newspapers so that you don't have to, and reviews stories you may not have seen. Yes, that's Tim Scott Uncancelled. Great value, very interesting. And have a look at the archive. You'll find that on at Unprecedented TV. Sorry, at Unprecedented TV on YouTube. Please do subscribe. Costs you nothing, and then you'll get all the notifications and so forth. And hopefully that you will subscribe, and that helps us a lot in all kinds of different ways. Back to Warren Thornton, though. Warren, story so far. Even as we speak, missiles being launched in both directions. People getting injured and killed. But there was a very disturbing story, which didn't get that much coverage in the West, actually. But it's pretty easy to find. More than 100 children reportedly killed in school bombing in Iran, and there's a video of it. Is this true in your view?
Yeah, it absolutely is true, because they've been trying to deny it on at least 2 or 3 occasions. Then they tried to say it was an Iranian misfire. It absolutely wasn't true. What happened is Israel gave the coordinates, the GPS coordinates, and said that they were hiding weapons there. They weren't. It was a school. It was literally in the middle of a school. And of course, they hit this school, blew it up. They have killed so far. They're still searching in the rubble. The numbers have been going up and up and up and up. But this was an elementary school. That means between the ages of 5 and 13. And there has been some horrific sights, which are shown on our show. They've been pulling bodies out of the rubble. There are 118 dead children so far. And the worst thing about this is Israel gave the coordinates to Great Britain. Britain did the targeting for the Americans to launch a missile at this. And of course, the Ayatollah story has taken over from all of this. But there are 118 children and maybe even more that have died at that elementary school. It is a war crime. No question that it is a war crime. And of course, nobody is putting their hand up to this.
Well, that's so shocking. When you think about Ukraine, where if Russia kills 3 civilians, it makes headlines. This isn't anywhere near the main story that we're hearing at the moment. I sadly tend to agree with you. I'm pretty sure this has happened. And that won't be the only casualty, I think. When you're actually, or set of casualties, when the bombing is this widespread, obviously you're taking massive risks with killing civilians. The death rate must be absolutely massive cause of fear for the civilians in Iran. I think this is one of the things that really bothers me. Iranians are like us. They have televisions and electricity and children and jobs and arguments with their partners and games with their kids and hopes of a holiday. And they're treated like they're some other alien species, class citizens.
It is absolutely incredible. And of course, they are just turning around and saying that we have a major issue. You know, when you're killing kids like this, if this was Putin doing this, there would be a massive problem. And of course, we're getting more and more of these reports coming out, and there are more and more videos of this coming out. So there's no question that this happened. We've seen actual videos of the children that have been pulled from the rubble, and they are absolutely horrific. And of course, this straight away inflames. This has inflamed not just the people who have seen this or people online or whatever, but this has inflamed the whole country. This story has gone around the country. There are people, emergency services, people turning up to help dig through the rubble. So this isn't a story they can just dust under the carpet and go, no, this didn't happen. And of course, the trouble is with America trying to walk away from this, they're very, very annoyed with the Israelis. The UK knew that, but they all knew. The Israelis told them that it was a school and that it was using this to hide weapons. There were no weapons there whatsoever. And of course, the Americans still went ahead and did it with UK guidance.
I grieve as a parent myself. I just grieve for the loss of life. I don't tend to talk very much about the Gaza-Israeli thing because I've never really convinced anyone to change their view. My distress here is about the level of human suffering which is being created here. But they should be concerned on the basis that if you kill 118 children, it's going to create a reaction. Imagine if somebody in France or Germany killed 118 children in a school. Imagine if there was a terror attack in Britain that killed 118 children. Just imagine the reaction. We know what happened after Southport. It's unimaginable to me what would actually happen. But apparently, different rules apply whenever we're the aggressors, or at least when we're the ones doing the military action. You mentioned the UK. I can't make sense of what Keir Starmer believes. Let's have a listen to what he's been saying.
Earlier this morning, the United States and Israel struck targets in Iran. Iran has since launched indiscriminate strikes across the region. I know the British people and communities across our country will be deeply concerned about what this means for security and stability and for the fate of innocent people across the region, which for so many of us includes friends and family members. So whilst the situation is evolving very quickly, I want to set out our response. The United Kingdom played no role in these strikes, but we have long been clear. The regime in Iran is utterly abhorrent. They have murdered thousands of their own people, brutally crushed dissent, and sought to destabilize the region. Even in the United Kingdom, the Iranian regime poses a direct threat to dissidents and to the Jewish community. Over the last year alone, they have backed more than 20 potentially lethal attacks on UK soil. So it is clear they must never be allowed to develop a nuclear weapon. That remains the primary aim of the United Kingdom and our allies, including the US. I condemn Iran's attacks today on partners across the region, many of which are not parties to this conflict. We extend our support and solidarity to them as part of our commitments to the security of our allies in the Middle East. We have a range of defensive capabilities in the region.
I haven't got a clue what he's talking about. I don't understand, Warren. What's he saying? Also, is he saying that this was all about the nuclear capability? Why kill the head of the country? Why kill his opposite number in Iran if this is about nuclear capability? And they were talking about nuclear capability. The discussions were about that.
Yes, yeah, exactly that. And of course, they were just used, as they always are, when they're going to strike somewhere. Let's get people talking. The Iranians knew this was coming because, of course, the Americans have done this already once. And that's the problem now. Nobody will ever trust the Americans again in any negotiation whatsoever. This isn't once, but this is twice during negotiations or supposed negotiations that they've hit that they've turned around and they've made strikes inside. And have you noticed that they haven't hit any of the nuclear sites whatsoever in this bombardment? So that tells you that it was never about nuclear. And Keir Starmer has come out lying through his teeth, as he always does, about literally everything. Keir Starmer is a literally renowned liar on every subject. I mean, he's come out on the subject of Ukraine, on the subject of grooming gangs, And of course, in many other subjects that, of course, he's been caught not, shall we say, being economical with the truth. And this is just another one of those. Akrotiri Air Base is being used to not only ferry weapons, but also to help the Israelis and the Americans target targets in Iran.
Let's have a look at some more of the pearls of wisdom from him, if we can.
Which we've recently strengthened. Our forces are active, and British planes are in the sky today as part of coordinated regional defensive operations to protect our people, our interests, and our allies, as Britain has done before, in line with international law. We've stepped up protections for British bases and personnel to their highest level. We are also reaching out to UK nationals in the region and doing everything we can to support them.
Well, I mean, I'd still no wiser. There's no point in watching the rest of that. It's just word salad. I have no idea where Keir Starmer stands. It's shocking. And the other thing I realise is how utterly irrelevant he's made the United Kingdom. It would have been unimaginable for America to take action like this without UK's involvement in the days of Thatcher. I didn't really like Thatcher, or days of Blair. But now we have a situation where he sits there like a squeaking sideshow, saying nothing really at all. I literally don't know if he's saying he supports the attacks, if he opposes the attacks. And by being so vague, he makes himself utterly irrelevant, Warren.
He does. And of course, he is Mr. Vanilla, isn't he? I mean, absolutely. He's got nothing, no substance to him at all. This is what you get when you get a WEF puppet and a lawyer or a solicitor.
World Economic Forum, you mean, WEF?
Yeah, exactly that. World Economic Forum. Go and have a look at how many World Economic Forum young global leaders, as they used to call them, are in charge of countries now. Your Macrons, your Millets, and people like this. And of course, most of these are either former solicitors or, are either former barristers or bankers. You've got Carney as well in charge of Canada. So these people are not picked because they've done anything fantastic on a political spectrum. They're picked because they can basically just spout a load of nonsense and just keep covering up. These people aren't picked for their political or diplomatic intellect, Lembit.
For another time, we'll talk about this being Starmer's explanation of why they lost a safe seat in Gorton Adenta. They lost it because it was a referendum on him, but he can't admit that. And of course, this dumb man was so scared of Andy Burnham. There's Andy Burnham, that he wouldn't let him stand, and Andy Burnham probably would have won it. But it's just shocking, really, that we've got so much superficiality going on there. Now, while we're talking about it, I haven't got very long. A couple of things. What happened to the Ukraine war? I mean, this used to be the biggie. What's happened there? Ukraine war briefing. Zelensky says Russia peace talks will depend on situation in Middle East. Ukrainian president voices support for US and Israel strikes on Iran, calling Tehran an accomplice of Putin. I mean, 1,467 days in, he's trying to get back in the story, but he's not really in it now, is he?
No, he isn't. And the trouble is, of course, as well, is that Israel is always going to be well ahead of Ukraine in terms of receiving arms. If it comes to any country out there, of course, because Israel have their feet under the table in many governments, if it comes to supplying arms, then Ukraine are second on the list. Israel will get everything that they want. And of course, Ukraine are already stretched to the limit. They're complaining they don't have enough of this or enough of that. And they're being hung out to dry, basically. Zelensky has pretty much outlived his usefulness. And of course, they're leaving Ukraine to their own devices. And especially if this war carries on with Iran, there's going to be, America are going to get more and more nervous the longer this goes on without a negotiated settlement or overthrowing the government. They're not going to overthrow the government. So then the next best thing they can hope for is to do a ceasefire. But Iran have already made it certain that a ceasefire is not in their near future. And of course, that means they're going to have to reinforce Israel with everything they've got. And literally, the big losers in this are going to be Ukraine. The big winner in this, of course, is Putin.
The Zelensky situation and that headline, if we can get it, there we are. Up again. He's trying to get in on the act, I think, by talking about the Middle East. But from what you've told me yourself, Warren, my understanding is that the West is running out of weapons. So they can't fight on two fronts. They can't fight in or fight by proxy in Ukraine and have this fight with a 90 million population country like Iran, which is pretty battle hardened, let's be honest. So am I right in assuming, and tell me if I'm wrong, but am I right in assuming that the weapons will now be diverted to the war that America wants to have rather than the war that Donald Trump inherited from somebody else?
Yes, as the Americans say, there's no such thing as a free lunch. And very, very simply, all the weapons that they have and the weapons from the Western countries will go to America to fight this war in Iran. And the problem that they have, of course, with that is they don't have that many weapons left. Most of them have already been used up in the 4 or 5 years that the Ukraine conflict has been going on. But let's not forget, the US have been using up a lot of their missiles because they gave them to the Saudi Arabians, who have been firing 2 of those a day into Yemen for the last few years. So, of course, this is a major, major issue. There are not enough weapons to go around. The Americans had to go, the Americans had to go to the Germans and ask them for their Patriot missile systems to give to Ukraine the first time. And then, of course, war broke out with Iran, so they had to give them to Israel. Now, they are firing around about 1,000 of these air defense missiles a day at 5 million a pop, Lembit. So anywhere between 3 to 5 million a pop, depending who you buy them off. And of course, if this goes on, and the Iranians are being very smart here, they're using up all their old stocks of ballistic missiles and drones. And of course, these drones are only a couple, 20,000, maybe a Shahed drone. It costs about 6,000 or 7,000 to make. And of course, you're using a £3 million rocket to try and take it down with.
So you said they're using 1,000 Patriot missiles a day.
Yes.
So that's 3 billion a day just on those.
You're looking at 3 billion a day. You have to say, in the last the 12-day war that they had, they were literally running out, and America had gone down to, they'd already used 20% of their stockpile of weapons to fire at Iran.
20%. So if this lasts for 10 days, just in terms of, if they have the missiles, just in terms of the Patriot missiles themselves, we're talking about 30,000 million pounds.
Yes.
Okay. There must be more than that, of course, but but you're looking at, when you're looking at these missiles, and they haven't got them to fire. Now, if they are sending the amount of drones that Iran are sending at the moment, now Iran are sending tons of these. And remember that the Russians can make 1,000 of these Shahed drones, as well as the new Garand drones that they've got, which, of course, they can make 1,000 of them a day, Lembit, a day. Some of them get through, I suppose, as well.
Oh, absolutely. But you are wasting 3 to 5 million a time to take down a drone that only costs about 5,000-6,000 to build.
Extraordinary.
And the other thing on top of that, Lembit, I have to say this, you don't know which drones are carrying the explosives.
They've got dummy drones.
Yeah, absolutely. It's what Russia use quite often. And of course, you're drawing air defense power. And now you don't know from a distance if that drone is carrying a payload or not. So, of course, they shoot it down. And then, of course, your supplies are exhausted maybe for that day, for that week. And then it's open season.
While all this is going on, I think that it's worth reminding viewers that Vladimir Putin and his colleagues are quite powerful. Here's a picture of some of those powerful allies. Modi from India, Xi Jinping from China, Putin from Russia. I wonder if this war actually strengthens Putin's hand, you suggested it does, well, China, which is staying well out of it in terms of actual military involvement, must be watching America depleting its military resources and saying it's not harmful for China.
No, and of course, China has an over the horizon radar that is absolutely brilliant. And of course, they're able to literally, all they're going to do is just keep going. They're going to let the Americans literally, because America are used to these wars. They're not used to these wars where it's a slow grind. America are used to going in hard, smashing everybody to pieces, winning the war, winning whatever they need to do, or destroying whatever they need to destroy in anywhere between 10 to 15 days. And then, of course, when people come begging for a deal, Iran are not going to do that. So then you have to ask, what else do you have? And of course, China and Russia are able to supply Iran endlessly with equipment and machines. And if North Korea get involved, who've got more missiles than anyone, if Kim gets involved, then we're talking a whole new ballgame.
You reckon that the Americans can sustain this for about a fortnight?
A fortnight, anywhere between 2 to 3 weeks. At the current rate that they're firing, they're going to have to ease off. They fired so far around just over 2,000 missiles in 2 days. So that tells you everything. And of course, about 60% of them are getting knocked out of the air. Now, if they sustain that and they keep that up, you won't be able to go to the well after 3 weeks.
I'm just a technical word about what Iran's doing. Surely, just as you said, Israel and the United States are going to run out of defensive equipment. Iran will too. So their guard will be down.
No, Iran is still getting lots and lots of deliveries. They're coming in from all places, from Russia, which have the integrated S-300 and S-400 system. And in fact, many of their air defenses this time haven't been knocked out of the air. In fact, they're trying to keep planes as far away from there. And of course, Iran have got much more lethal weaponry now, as well as air defenses. So of course, they're able to strike at depots there. And what they are doing is knocking out the radar. The Fifth Fleet in Bahrain, the radar station there has been blown up. Kuwait's been blown up. Negev today has been hit very, very hard by the Iranians with hypersonic missiles. And you have to remember that Iran are using up all their old stockpiles. They have only literally unleashed very limited amounts of the hypersonic missiles, which they have quite a lot of. So, of course, they're going to use up all Israel and America's air defenses. America are either going to have to sail home. I mean, they launched 4 missiles at the Abraham Lincoln. They didn't hit the Abraham Lincoln because they were ballistic missiles, and the Americans were able to take care of it. But it did force the Abraham Lincoln to move further away. And of course, that is the main worry. We cannot have, or you cannot have, as America see it, an American aircraft carrier sinking beneath the waves and somebody taking a picture of that. That picture would go around the world and cause enormous prestige damage to America, rather like the picture of if you put a picture of the General Belgrano, which was sunk in 1982 by the British. If you put that up even today, most people will be able to tell you what that is. America cannot have that.
That's something that happened in World War I at the Battle of Jutland. It's a massive ocean battle, but both sides, Germany and Britain, were both too scared to lose their big ships called the dreadnoughts. They were too big to be used. They were too precious.
And here's the other thing, Lembit. You're absolutely right when you're saying this. If you put a black and white picture up of Pearl Harbor today, people will be able to tell you what it is. So America cannot have one of their aircraft carriers even on fire, let alone sunk.
It's interesting that the Persian Gulf is quite shallow, and it's actually theoretically possible that part of it would still be sticking out of the sea if it sank there.
You know what they're like. You know what these people are like. There'll be people from all over the place in the Middle East, and let's face it, when American bases are being hit, there are people in Bahrain, there are people in Oman, there are people everywhere that are cheering when these missiles are hitting American bases. So they're not popular. It doesn't matter what the regimes say that are in charge of places like Saudi Arabia and Bahrain and everything else. They're not popular with the groundswell of people there. They're actually having parties while they're watching these missiles come in and hitting the American bases and cheering it on. So the problem is, of course, if you get one of those rusting away in obviously the Straits of Hormuz or somewhere like that in very shallow water, you'll have boat parties going out to take pictures of it. You know, it'll become a tourist attraction. So you don't literally want that to happen. It would be so embarrassing.
3 questions to finish with, Warren. How long will this conflict last?
This conflict, well, this one is a lot more difficult to judge than Ukraine because Iran are in the box seat here. And I think this is I don't think it's going to last too long. I think it might be a couple of months, but I think America might scoot off with their tail between their legs until, remember, the last one lasted 12 days. I've got a feeling we're going to see some real problems. If America can't get this done, I think within inside a month, they're going to go scuttling off to a deal.
Secondly, regime change, is it going to happen?
Absolutely no chance whatsoever.
Thirdly, where can people find out more about your programming?
Certainly, on Monday to Friday, Warren Thornton on Patreon. If they come across to Patreon, type in Warren Thornton. We have an interactive show Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And on a Sunday night, of course, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. is a special show because we have the wonderful Lembit Öpik from Unprecedented.
Thank you very much for saying. That is Warren Thornton, who is an investigative journalist and also a military expert. I'll just add 2 thoughts of my own. I grieve for anyone who suffers as a result of political decisions to resolve matters through war. It viscerally affects me. I have to say, immensely upset and out of sorts, really, when this began, because I couldn't get the thought about those children who've been killed out of my head. The second thing is, in war, I think there are no winners. There are just degrees of losing. But the biggest losses are with the populations who have to endure the fear, the damage, the grief, and the deprivation that comes with war. I suppose my faith tells me that you should never try to settle your disputes with violence. We spend our lives telling children not to pick fights in the playground. What message does this kind of behavior on an international scale tell our children and tell the world? Please follow me on @Unprecedented on the YouTube. Please do go and see Warren Thornton at warrenthornton.com, and please do like and subscribe with us as well. I'm Lembit Öpik. That was Lembit Öpik Live on Unprecedented TV.
Immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages.